Kendon just told me to tell you hi.
Oh, well, tell Kendon I said hi.
I'll tell him after.
All right, whatever. Hello, this is the Crush Monocle podcast. I am Aaron Cooper, also known as Coop in these circles. I am joined today with Jon, my co-host. Hi, Jon.
Hello. One of these days, we'll rename this site so it matches the fucking podcast title.
Well, either way, until then, it's a really cool podcast title.
Yeah, cool. There we go.
See? This is a podcast where we talk about stuff.
Let's talk about some stuff with Coop and Jon.
That's the lyrics of the theme song, if you didn't catch that.
Oh, man.
I'm going to take this opportunity really fast to do a small corrections corner.
Okay.
There wasn't any mistakes in the first episode. It was a perfect podcast that I think that the entire universe would enjoy. Or at least the 150 people that clicked on it. I just want to say that this is the second attempt at the second episode. That's why there's been a slight delay. Yep. We recorded an episode with our original podcast host, Mike. But unfortunately, his audio was really jacked up. He recorded it with his cell phone. Yeah, and it sounded like he was recording on a raft in some Huck Finn territory. So... And audio quality is the utmost importance when listening to a podcast because, you have to listen to it. So I'm sorry, Mike. Maybe in the future we can do this one more time. So I mean, that's my corrections corner.
Let's be honest and just say that maybe that conversation wasn't the best.
The conversation was fine. If the people listening right now don't know Mike is very argumentative with his topics and his opinions. I think some of his topics are a little outdated. We don't really need another hour and a half episode about Kanye West. Again, for the people who didn't listen to the podcast that didn't get released, it was mostly about Kanye West.
Yeah. We definitely like, yeah. What did we hit on? Like Kanye West, Pearl Jam, and then 9 Inch Nails. That's like what we talked about, right?
That's what Mike talked about. I really didn't do a lot of talking.
I mean, I talked a little bit. I was in there.
I have a skeleton of an episode. I don't think it's good enough to drop on the world, but maybe one of these days.
I guess I should finish after run and jive on Mike. Mike, if you listen to this, which you won't, I love you, buddy. But yeah, come on another time and whatever.
And me too. I am also a big fan of Mike. Like I said, I love the original podcast, and I was a guest quite a few times on the pod.
Yes, you were.
And I would love to have Mike again in the future when he's less grumpy and has better recordings.
All right. Are we going to get into this thing?
We're going to get into this thing. First, I would like to ask you, what have you listened to recently that you really, really liked?
The new King Woman album, I think, is pretty spectacular. It's kind of, for those that don't know King Woman, it's kind of a gothic, heavy, I guess, type vibe, rock vibe. And they just put out a new album, probably a couple weeks ago, something like that.
Okay.
Really good. I can't remember the front person's name, but her vocals are spectacular. They really kind of stepped it up production-wise, song-wise, all that stuff. I was a fan before, and probably a bigger fan now that album has dropped. And I'm such a lame ass, I can't even remember the name of the album.
They have a cool band name, so I'm sure we can find that pretty easy.
Yeah, it's really good. So the album's called Celestial Blues. Obviously, it's on Bandcamp, all the streaming services, whatnot. So, yeah, check it out.
Ah, cool. An album that I listened to here recently. Well, two things. Being that I bought a new guitar, I've been trying to play more guitar more often.
Right.
So I try to listen to a lot of stuff, a lot of guitar-heavy stuff that I don't really listen to often. So I really wanted to check out the Allman Brothers. I know a lot of their, the old classic rock group from a million years ago.
Yep.
I've listened to a lot of their singles. How could you not?
Yeah.
But I for the past couple of weeks, I listened to every single thing I could find from the Allman Brothers.
Nice.
Which is a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of live stuff.
Yeah.
And they're friggin' fantastic. How have I not listened to these people this much before? It's just really, really good.
Nice. I actually ran a show for those dudes once back in the day.
Really?
Yeah, like probably so like sometime in the mid 2000s they were doing just like an amphitheater tour or whatever. But yeah,
Were they nice?
yeah, they actually. I mean, you'd think like fuck, it's the Allman Brothers. They're gonna be kind of like snooty, that type shit. They were just a bunch of old dudes that were just fucking super chill. Like everybody was nice. Like yeah, it was out of all the shows I've done, like that was an easy one. So
That's great though. I mean, I think there's only like a couple of those dudes left from that band. I know the Allman Brothers themselves aren't around anymore, but
yeah, I mean,
so that's a good big win.
yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not obviously like I know the hits, but like I'm not super versed on like them as a band, so I don't know what original members were left or even what year that show was. So I have no idea. But yeah, just a couple of super nice old guys. So.
They're like Leonard Skinner that don't suck.
Yeah, word. Yeah, Leonard only hits on like 3-4 songs tops, and then everything else is fucking terrible.
I won't listen to Leonard Skinner. I hate them. I hate the people that like Leonard Skinner.
Yeah, dude,
I know that's not fair.
Yeah, that's definitely like turned into like a very like kind of right-winged toxic fan base, right?
I guess a bunch of crazy drunk dads.
Yeah. Coop, I want to know why you didn't name the new Guns N' Roses song your favorite thing that you've heard.
That may be the worst song I've ever heard in my life.
Dude, it wasn't that bad.
It's bad.
It's pretty
okay,
bad.
Look.
It's pretty bad.
All right, look. I know you're a GNR dude. I like GNR.
Hey. I don't want to be painted as a GNR dude. I never once said I was a GNR dude. Look. I think November Rain is a fucking amazing song. Okay?
Yeah.
Like, it's fucking insanely amazing. Like, it really is.
Okay.
But, like, I like the hits, I guess. And, like, but you're not going to, like, catch me, like, throwing on, like, Use Your Illusion 2 and just fucking rocking out. Like, that's not happening.
I don't think anyone in that band would actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like, yeah. They're just, like... like obviously it sounded like a Chinese democracy like outtake or something, you know what I mean?
And here's the thing that I have with this new song.
Go for it.
For years everyone has give Axl Rose a lot of hell for like, oh, he turned GNR into something that they weren't.
Right.
Chinese democracy for 20 years,
right.
And what we got, it's not good. This has got the original lineup pretty much. I mean, it's got Slash and Duff.
That hasn't been confirmed. Are you for sure on that? Because the only personnel that I could find when I looked it up the day that it dropped was just that. Do you remember that drummer they used to drum for Primus too? I think his name's like Brian Mantua or something like that.
Yeah.
So the only confirmed person on that track was him, from what I understood.
Okay.
So I'm not sure that it has any of the like OG guys on it.
Well, it has to, because they're touring.
Yeah.
And the guy that does all the guitar noodling sounds like Slash. And Slash is not going to sign off on something Guns N' Roses with a dude imitating him.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean,
okay.
I'm looking it up now to see if anything has like changed. But when I looked at the wiki, they didn't like say like who was on.
Well, it also has a punk vibe, which I would usually love, and Duff is the punk dude. And
yeah, so Duff's definitely on this. I'm not seeing anything about Slash though.
Well, see, if that dude's just imitating Slash, because it clearly sounds like Slash, that guitar soloing.
Yeah.
Then that could be contention, and we could have another breakup with GNR.
Never mind, I glossed over it. Slash and Duff are on this.
Yeah, okay. All right, so back to my point. People give hell to Axl Rose so much over turning Guns N' Roses into Chinese democracy.
Right.
This has got 2 OGs on it, and it still sucks.
Yeah.
So I'm going to take back a little bit of that Axl Rose crap that we've given him over the years.
Dude, the thing that's nuts, right, is like, okay, like if you think of Chinese democracy when I guess maybe it should have come out, obviously it wasn't ready, and like that whole fiasco, right? Like we don't even need to get into that. But let's just say like, they dropped it like when it would have made sense around like 99, 2000, something like that, right?
Right.
That at that time it would have sounded like okay or contemporary or whatever, right? Because it's like this like industrial kind of rock kind of whatever. That's kind of what everybody was doing back in the day, right? Like Linkin Park was coming out, you know, Prodigy, Nine Inch Nails. I don't want to start talking about Nine Inch Nails again, but you know what I'm saying.
Right.
But when that thing dropped like fucking 8 years later and like nobody was even making that kind of music now and like, or that type of music like back in, what was it, like 2008 I think is when it dropped or something like that?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so like now here we are in 2021 and they're still dropping like alt industrial, I don't even know what the fuck. You know what I mean?
And that's fine.
It's so dated. It's so fucking dated.
Okay, that's fine. They can do dated music. It's Guns N' Roses. Like, it's a rite of passage for them to be dated.
Yeah.
We shouldn't even care about Guns N' Roses in 2021.
I know. The fact that I even made this a tangent, I actually feel a little ashamed. But I kind of wanted you to shit all over the song because I was going to make me laugh.
Well, I mean, they suck at it. I mean, it's not because it's outdated it sounds bad. It sounds bad because it legitimately sounds bad. There's nothing redeemable. That sample, that constant scream, it's not even a full Axl scream. The lyrics are embarrassing. Look,
Yeah, the
I like
lyrics
the
are
Misfits.
fucking bad. The lyrics are bad.
I like the Misfits. This makes the Misfits lyrics sound like Lennon McCartney. When I looked them up, I couldn't believe he was actually saying this with a straight face. It's the worst. It might be the worst. So, yeah. So that's the thing that's one good thing I hate it. Good catch, because I really didn't have anything that I hated.
All right.
I listened to the new Liars album.
Oh
called,
yeah.
Yeah, the Apple Drop.
Yeah.
And it is. I want to say it's probably my favorite record of the year already.
Yeah, I mean the fact that they are that Angus, I don't know his last name, Angus Andrew or whatever, right? It's basically kind of his band at this point, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that, I mean, our friend Kendon that you guys don't know, or maybe you do, anyways, he was in charge of the Ad Read podcast, but he's really good friends with Coop and myself, and he kind of pointed out that it dropped and pointed out the fact that that Angus is working with this kind of jazz drummer now. And the fact that there was like live drums to their kind of like electronic kind of vibey, like moody sound, like that really sold me on it. Like I love the like organic kind of drum kit with their like vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you can't go wrong with a live kit with any kind of music, but especially with this kind of thing. I saw them at Riot Fest a few years ago. I actually interviewed that dude for publication.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, because you interviewed Angus, didn't you, for the site? Yep.
But when I saw them do their set, he played with a live band, and he still did all the ambient and crazy stuff that he didn't do on the album.
Yeah, that's dope.
It's still a digital album. I mean,
right.
There's live instruments on it, but it's to me it sounds a lot like their earlier stuff. Yeah. Maybe not like their guitar-driven stuff, but like when they first started getting moody. Yeah. This is a good follow-up to that, and I can't stress it enough. If you've ever listened to Liars, listen to this record.
Yeah, for sure. Good album for sure.
Perfect segue. The other thing that before we talked about GNR, I was going to say that I hate it was the Space Jam movie. Okay, I'm not going to stick on this too long because I wrote an article about it. Shameless plug, go read my article about Space Jam if you want to know my full-on opinions. But in short, it sucked. Like, really bad. Maybe not as bad as the GNR song, but it sucked. But my segue into that was, do you know when the original Space Jam came out?
96.
It came out in 1996, 25 years ago. See, I'm getting better at podcasting. That was a segue.
Yeah, but they don't even know why we're segueing into 1996.
Oh, that's right. Thank you, John. I'm segueing into 1996 because that is our discussion topic today. We're going to talk about all the weird stuff in 1996 and why it was weird and how, even though it was the middle of the decade, it signified the death of the 90s.
Yeah, pretty sure. Yeah, like, I did, like, obviously, like, we grew up 1996. Obviously, we were around all that shit. And, like, off the top of my head, I'm just like, yep, that album, that movie, that album, like, I can just keep going, right?
Yeah.
But I really, like, looked it up a little bit more after, you told me that this was going to be the subject for the podcast. And, like, just an insane amount of like good music came out in 1996. Like insane.
Yeah. And it's funny because the elephant in the room comes out when we're talking about 1996. We've got to talk about Bill Clinton for a minute. Again, not politics, but people don't realize that the Telecommunications Act of 1996 was signed into law like in February or something like that. And in short, without making this a big boring thing, the internet was just becoming like a force with communications in 1996, and all the people who make money on communications thought, hey, we can make a crap ton of money on this, so we want to make it easy for anybody to get into the communications business.
Yeah.
So that was actually supposed to help the way we consume art, be it from the internet, television, all these things. But in the middle of all the legislation and all that stuff inside of it, they removed the cap of ownership of communication companies. Now, you would think that would open the doors to everybody can own a radio station or an internet channel or whatever.
Yeah.
But what that did when they removed the cap on how many they can own, that basically opened the floodgates for the companies to own an unlimited amount of radio stations across the country.
Oh, shit. I didn't even realize this. Okay.
Yeah, so it's weird because not too many people talk about this, and this is not my opinion. You can dig deep and you can find this. I talked to some people who actually used to work in like AR and all that, and they talked about it. I don't want to name drop them on here because I don't know what they do for a living now or so.
Sure.
But the long and short of it is, basically up until 1996, they all had the same radio laws as they did in 1939, I think, or 34. That was the last time there was any kind of communications act. So before 1996, you was only allowed, like a big company could only, I live in Chicago.
Yeah.
So let's say a company like iHeartRadio or Live Nation, they can only own 2 stations in the market. Okay, so that means when they own those stations, they can play what they want.
Right.
Every other station was independent. So those stations had to play what people requested or what they felt like people should be hearing.
Wow, this is getting a lot deeper than I expected. Holy shit. Okay, go ahead.
So this can come back to Nirvana.
Okay.
Up throughout the 80s, rock music got super stagnant, hair metal and all that stuff.
Right.
But when Nirvana came out, like, it blew everyone's minds because, it's Nirvana.
Right.
They weren't hair metal.
Right.
So in 1991 or whatever, when Nirvana was big, all the record labels, the major labels, saw that Nirvana money.
Right.
So they went out and they signed anybody and everybody who was a band because they were looking for the next weird Nirvana.
Yeah, like so many fucking random bands got signed in the 90s. Like, it's like bands that had no business being on like major labels were signed in the 90s. Like, just insane. Like,
yeah, so and like there was still heavy hitters back then. There was still a lot of the big groups that, like Soundgarden and Pearl Jam and Nirvana and all that, Alice in Chains. But for every Nirvana that we had, we also had a Dinosaur Jr. Now, Dinosaur Jr., like, they're indie rock royalty, but they're not as accessible as Nirvana.
right.
There's probably no way they deserved any kind of play on mainstream radio. They're one of my favorite bands. I don't mean that in a disrespectful way.
Right.
I'm just saying, like, you can listen to the most accessible Dinosaur Jr. song, and that's not something you would hear in the top 40.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna like speak to that, it's just like all those other bands that were maybe secondary or third, like Helmet, Quicksand, fucking like the Breeders, like you could just Veruca Salt, like you could just go on and on and on about just all these, like the Meat Puppets, like like nobody, Meat Puppets had no business being remotely popular, right? Like,
right.
Yeah.
So of course you're gonna have burnout. You're going to have burnout after if all these labels has got, instead of having 10 bands on their roster, they've got like 35 or 50 bands. It's hard because the people are following the market. Do kids like this? Do kids like this? So they was playing all that weird stuff on the radio.
Right.
But now when the Telecommunications Act come in, 1996, when this was first signed in February, so it was the very first of the year.
Okay.
Now all the major stations that were being bought out were owned by major labels and companies like Live Nation and all.
Jesus,
now they
man.
wanted to listen to what people was really listening to.
Right.
Because this was gonna be make or break. Do kids want to listen to the new Tom Petty record?
Yeah.
Do they want to listen to the Not a Surf record? You know.
Right.
In saying that, 1996 was kind of the year of one-hit wonders.
Okay.
But they weren't one-hit wonders because of the band's output. They were one-hit wonders because when a group come out and they had that hit, they really didn't give them a second chance to have the follow-up hit.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
So the market changed to where if the band wasn't performing the way they want it, just drop them. And they're signed to contracts, so they couldn't just say, hey, you're fired. They would make the band so miserable that they would want out of their contracts.
Okay. Can you give me like an example of like one of these bands?
I'm going to give you my favorite band. You knew it was coming, but Super Drag.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I should have known.
So, right, I'm sorry. I have to mention a Nashville band, or actually a Knoxville band at some point. But they're the prime example. They had that hit song, Sucked Out.
Yep.
It was a huge hit. It was on the radio.
Great fucking song.
Great band. But when it come time to listen to their second single, MTV only aired the video at 3 a.m., like maybe 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, so just like on 120 minutes or some shit like that.
I don't even think it was on 120 minutes. It was probably like on Dreamtime or something.
Yeah,
no one saw it.
Yeah.
It's a better song than Sucked Out. But people didn't hear it because the label knew at the time that we weren't going to push this.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That changed, and that explains why there's such weird music in 1996. And think about it. We had big groups like, Metallica come out with a record, Slayer come out with a record, but all those groups were struggling with identity because even the bands couldn't follow what was popular because there was too much for people to listen to.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, when you start talking about that, like, it really starts to get to the point where, like, you dictate. So these big companies, big corporations, start to dictate what is going to be popular, period, because they're going to decide what gets played, right?
Right. Now, payola is what they call that. That's when a label pays a radio station to play their song.
Right,
That's illegal.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but when you own the radio station and you own the band, how, can't you just tell them what to play?
Well, when a major company owns the radio station, there's no such thing as payola.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean, yeah.
So, now you would think that because all the radio labels own the stations that you was going to hear a bunch of synthetic stuff that was popular.
Right.
But the 90s was like, it was just a couple years that Nirvana came out, so they really didn't even know.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So they kind of let everything like stew in 1996. We had big groups like the Smashing Pumpkins that were kind of like of the Nirvana,
right?
Maybe like kind of second tier, but they were super huge.
Right.
But then you had like groups that were putting out that used to be top 40 like a couple years before, like Counting Crows or Hootie and the Blowfish, but they were putting out music that was slightly darker or more mature,
right?
So they didn't know how to market it.
Yep.
We all know that the Counting Crows and Hootie and the Blowfish were super huge when they dropped their first albums. You couldn't turn on the radio without hearing Mr. Jones and it sucked. It's terrible, but
yeah, you just talking about it's making me sad.
It's a bummer, yeah, right. But both of those bands released music in 1996 that were big departures from Mr. Jones or Hold My Hand.
Yeah.
That Hootie and the Blowfish record is actually really not that bad. That's objectively.
Coop, I will end this podcast.
But I'm talking comparing to the other one, and the same goes for Counting Crows. They released their second album. The album that came out in '96 is more of a rock record rather than that granola, grunge pop. But the thing about it is, they knew that it wasn't going to turn in the same numbers as what they had previously, so they didn't push it.
Okay.
So that's why no one knows any of those songs from the Counting Crows in 1996 or Hootie and the Blowfish. They just know the ones that when they first came out that we heard a zillion times.
Yeah.
It's almost like they took these middle tier groups and kind of pushed them under the rug, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funky to think, like, just, like, scrolling through stuff. Like, this is when, like, because, you know, obviously a few years later or whatever is really when, like, pop really started to fucking take over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and, like, this is the year where those, like, seeds got planted. You know what I mean? Like...
Oh, definitely. And if you notice, 1997, the following year, everything is streamlined. There wasn't many... It was either a major arena group or you were a new group that no one had ever heard before.
Right.
Because when you're a younger group, you can be manipulated easier and shaped into other things.
Right.
You know.
Okay.
1997, like one of the bigger groups in 97 was Sugar Ray. You know,
dear.
Smash Mouth. You know.
Like,
yeah.
That's the thing. That's the thing when you think about the 90s is like, for me at least, like, you know, like, I'm not going to front and say that, like, the music died in 96 or anything, any bullshit like that. But, like, you could easily find, like, good bands, good music, like, whatever. Like, it was just there for the taking, right?
And it wasn't just the rock genre. Like,
Yeah.
think of all the hip-hop that come out in 1996.
Yeah, for sure,
I mean,
for sure.
Any kind of music. Electronica was getting big at the time.
Yep. And then, like, kind of just, like, the latter half of that decade just became, like... You had to start digging. Like you had to go search out like good shit. You know what I mean? Like it wasn't just there right in front of your face. Like you had to kind of sift through all the bullshit to try and find, you know, like the like quality shit. And the thing that sucks too is like a lot of bands either like went on hiatus around like 96, 97, 98 or just straight up quit. You know what I mean?
Right. Or, you know, and like, there's a lot of groups that you never heard from again. Like, hey, whatever happened to them?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't have an album that tanked, or they didn't break up. You just didn't hear of them anymore.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why, because by the time the end of 1996 came around, they kind of knew the formula, and less was the formula. Everything pop got really big in 1997,
Right?
Because they started shoving all these groups and artists together. You know, having less of them, you know, let's get rid of all these 10,000 bands that we signed 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And let's focus on these new ones or the established ones.
Yeah.
No more mid-tier. You know, think
Yeah.
of all the big groups that come out in 1997, just like the spring of 97, like people like Third Eye Blind or Matchbox 20.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I mean, it just keeps getting worse and worse,
Yeah.
but more generic too, though.
Yeah,
you know,
for
like,
sure. For sure.
Yeah, if had Matchbox 20 come out in 1996 and was on mainstream radio, people would have forgotten about it.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
Sugar Ray shouldn't have been on the radio and wouldn't have been on the radio in 1996. But in what you're saying about how much good music was out in 1996, it was because it was variety, and that variety was being explored.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, so people didn't know what was popular, so they give everything to everybody just to see what would make it. So that's a big thing about, you know, hey, well, we own everything, so we don't have to put millions of dollars in hundreds of bands. We could put the same millions in 10 bands and make more money.
Okay, this makes sense. Yeah. That's crazy, dude. Like you're like, I was just like, oh yeah, 96, and like some shit changed after, and that you're getting all like researched about it and shit. Now I'm like, my mind's kind of like blown.
Well, I mean, think of all the big groups in 1996. I mean, you can't count the Smashing Pumpkins because, I mean, Melancholy come out in 95. And
yeah, but they were still like
riding
that. They were still riding that like super hard. Like I would argue that the Pumpkins were the biggest band in '96. Wouldn't you say?
Clearly,
yeah,
clearly they were. But they were also working on. By the time 1996 came to an end, they was already collaborating with Trent Reznor. They had that song "I" from the Lost Highway soundtrack, which is straight up techno.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'm not. I am not an Adore fan, so I'm just gonna like, yeah. So
right, but my point is that they was already starting to change themselves.
Yep.
So I can't really put them into the change so much.
Right.
But look of all the established groups. Soundgarden, I mean, that's my favorite Soundgarden album. They
So
came out
fucking
that year.
good. So fucking good.
But that's a departure from their other music. I mean, it's not really grunge or
Yeah, but I feel like
heavy.
it's like a natural progression. Like
Yeah.
like you listen to Super Unknown and then you listen to Down on the Upside and you're like, okay, like I don't like there's like it's less heavy in parts, or maybe the majority of the album. I don't know. However, I would agree to either one, but
Right.
but like it's like a logical progression, don't you think?
I think it's a logical progression, but it's still a departure.
Okay. Okay.
And my point is that departure, the labels didn't know how to deal with that departure.
Yeah.
So these groups can make it on their own name. So there really wasn't a whole lot of need. Like, oh crap, we're playing psychedelic music, so let's drop Soundgarden now.
Right.
They didn't have to worry or panic.
Right.
But they also didn't have to push so much for playing videos 24 hours a day.
Right.
They were going to sell themselves. Metallica come out with an alternative album in 1996.
Was this Load or Reload?
That would be Load.
This is
Reload's the
Load?
second one.
Oh, yeah, I know, but I'm trying to remember sorry. So Load came out in 96 and then
Yes.
Reload came out in 97 or 98.
Yeah, like the end of 97.
Okay.
So yeah. But
Okay.
I mean that's a major departure for Metallica.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I it's just I have the dumbest smile on my face thinking about how ridiculous it was.
Yeah, I mean, and look at Alice in Chains. They were one of the big ones, right?
Yeah.
Their album that came out around, I can't remember exactly
The
when
self-title
it
came out in 95, from what I can remember.
All right, but that was still a more of an acoustic, more of a somber album than
that fucking
actual
album's
heavy.
so good. That album is so
I know
good.
it's my favorite Alice in Chains record.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Is like some of these bands that had survived, I guess, like I don't know, like Soundgarden, like they had progressed past this like more kind of like aggressive kind of vibe, and because they were such good like bands and like songwriters and shit like that like in 96 or around this time, like some of those bands kind of as they were, I guess, fading out, I don't know, like they, in my mind, like put out like some of their best shit. You know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah, and the thing about it is because they defied what they were pigeonholed as.
Yeah,
when you think of like, oh, it's grunge. All those bands hate it being called that because they weren't. Grunge isn't a thing. That's just a marketing thing to
Right.
But that Soundgarden album was more influenced by like late 60s, early 70s, kind of like psychedelic. It was kind of like it was like the Doors playing heavy metal.
Right.
Yeah.
And
But every one of those well-established rock bands were going against what they were, labeled as.
I mean, we
Metallica.
gotta hit on like the Stone Temple Pilots album. Like that was a fucking huge departure, but it was still dope.
Right. I mean, it was more glam than it was grunge.
Yeah.
More Bowie influence.
Yeah, like
and
art.
Again,
Yeah, kind of art rocky. Yeah.
That's my favorite STP album.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you on that for sure. So.
Right. But look at all the other groups that had, again, going back to the terrible music like Hootie or Counting Crows. All those groups, even them, those mid-tier groups were going against what they were. Right. Weezer even did it. Pinkerton, we all praised Pinkerton as the greatest album from Weezer, and I think it is. That album tanked.
Oh yeah, it just got absolutely fucking drop kicked.
And it got tanked because no one's like, hey, this doesn't sound like what they did a couple of years ago. This is different.
Right.
I mean, it took a while for that to get its own traction. So all the established groups, labels weren't pushing them.
So Weezer's making me think of something though a little bit, and this is a little bit of a tangent, and I'll make it short. But like, so like departures happen for like Stone Temple Pilots, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, whatever. Smashing Pumpkins starting to kind of make that change too, right? So the difference between them, maybe getting a pass and Weezer not getting a pass is Weezer. This was the second Weezer album. Right, so they hadn't really like, although like the Blue Album like I think is like Diamond, so it sold like 10 million copies, right? So it was hugely popular. but like they hadn't like established themselves or their sound. So when they go away from this like power chord kind of, I don't want to call it pop punk, but you know, it kind of had that kind of like fuzzy kind of pop, you know what I'm saying? And
Right.
to go from that to that, like they don't have that base where like they hadn't like earned the trust from like their fans yet. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Where like Soundgarden had put out at least 3 full lengths, and then like, you know, they had a bunch of EPs and kind of like compilations before that, like in the 80s, right? And then like Stone Temple Pilots maybe is a stretch because that was their 3rd album, so they were only 2 albums in. But again, they'd kind of like established themselves, right?
Right.
Where Weezer, it's like, okay, well, this is your 2nd album, and you just completely fucking like, I don't want to say like completely redid what worked on the first one, but pretty damn fucking close. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But, I mean, my point is that pretty much every popular band that was established, even if they come out 5 or 6 years before 1996 or in 1995, everything that was popular before 1996 that put out music in 1996 showed a different departure.
Right.
Like, look at Green Day. You know, Dookie was super huge, right?
Right.
It's one of the highest selling, most highly regarded pop punk albums ever. Look at their album that came out in 1996.
That's
like,
Insomniac, right?
Right, Insomniac. Now, we know that, but like you don't hear Insomniac songs on the radio.
Right. Yeah. Dude, there's some fucking bangers though. They went like heavy. Following that. Like,
You know, I don't like Green Day. I never was a Green Day fan, but I sound like a broken record now, but that's probably my favorite Green Day record.
you're just one of those like anti-establishment people. Like anytime somebody shits on an album, you're like, that's my favorite album.
No, I mean, I think that's a popular Green Day album amongst fans, you know. I'm just saying that, like, it's weird because, I mean, when people talk about the sophomore slump, I know that's not their first records or whatever, but
yeah.
Those records are coming from those first weird records or departures are coming from an honest place because most of these bands now have the resources to stretch their legs a little bit.
Sure.
You know, otherwise Weezer wouldn't have made Pinkerton. If Buddy Holly wasn't a hit, they wouldn't have had Pinkerton.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I mean, even punk at the time, Slayer, another favorite group of mine, they didn't know what to do in 1996, so they released a punk covers album.
Yeesh.
And it's that album actually got me into a lot more legit punk, you know.
Yeah.
So I can't hate on that record because I liked it and it introduced me to like music I probably wouldn't have listened to. But this is a metal group, the most dangerous metal group ever, and they didn't know what to do. Yeah. You know, like, hey, we don't like where music's going, so let's go back. You know, instead of appeasing the kids, they went to what they liked when they were kids. So, like, even these powerful groups really didn't know where to go next.
How come you haven't talked about the second Korn album dropping in 1996?
I thought that dropped in 97.
Life is Peachy?
Yeah, I thought that was like
According to
97.
Wiki, it's 96, and like the 96 seems right.
I remember the Adidas video, but
yeah, that video was dope.
I like that song. That's a good song.
Look, man, like I know that Korn is terrible. Like I understand it. Like I get it. You're not gonna see me running around in a fucking Korn t-shirt or anything like that. Right?
Right.
But like as far as their albums go, like I've always been like curious about them. Like I'll listen to them. Like I've put them on. Like I've bought their CDs. Like all that shit. And like they're always gonna be cringy, but like their second album is actually like pretty fucking solid.
Okay, so would you say that their second album is your favorite Korn album?
No, but I'm outing myself, and I don't really want to go much further.
Okay, I'll give you that pass. That's a topic for the new metal episode we'll have one day.
I mean, no, fine. I'll out myself. I'll fucking out myself. Fine. So it's probably my second favorite.
Okay. All right. Okay. But
because hold on, I've already done this, so I might as well just go for it. Okay.
Just say it.
Untouchables is my favorite Korn album.
I don't know the Korn albums. I know the first two, and that's it. Or the one that come out after
You
it.
know the third one. You know Follow the Leader. Don't.
Yeah, okay. All right. Okay. I forgot about that one. But yeah. Okay. All right. I don't even know if I listened to.
I'm embarrassed. I'm gonna leave the podcast. I won't be back.
There's no episode 3. This one will also be shelved. No, but but though, see, that represented something new that was coming out because around 1997, the labels are like, "Hey, look, metal sucks now. Hip hop's big, so let's see if we can combine those two or sign the groups that are combining the two, and that could be the new rock."
Right.
You know.
Yep.
So Korn's success, I'm not saying that Korn wouldn't have been popular either way because their first album came out like 94 and it was popular, but still the rise of groups like that is pretty much fallout from 1996.
Right. 100%.
Because
there was a void left by like the rock bands that had kind of given up or departed or just kind of whatever, and like the kids wanted their like heavy shit back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I mean, they all felt that it was underground from then on out. Because think back at 1997. Was there any popular heavy music in 1997, mainstream wise?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're going new metal, then no.
Right, exactly. So all those new metal groups were new bands.
Right.
So there was like no established heavy groups coming out in 1997 because they killed the 90s and 96. And it's like, look, anything that come out before 1997 is outdated. You don't want to be outdated. You want to be cool.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So 1996 killed the 90s. Well, the grunge movement or alternative rock, I should say.
Yeah. It's just like, it's crazy though. Like, it's like so many fucking good albums dropped that year. Like so many good albums. Like we haven't even talked about like Evil Empire from Rage. Like,
oh right, yeah.
You know.
Well,
like,
I mean, I guess Rage would probably be your first new metal. I know they're not new metal, but
yeah. I mean,
mainstream successful new metal.
Yeah, I mean, it's rap rock new metal. I mean, it sucks that they got lumped into that because there's so much more and they're so much deeper and like
and better,
so much more important. Like, you know. But yeah, I mean, it's hard not to lump them in with like new metal. It just kind of is what it is, you know.
Well, okay, so look at hip hop in 1996. Hip hop, like before 1996, it was just getting mainstream.
Yep.
Like we all liked Snoop Dogg and Dre and all that stuff, and stuff that we would consider probably young people now would consider underground. But hip hop was gaining traction in the mainstream.
Yeah, I would make the argument that like it was a basically like a steady build up. That like
it was getting there, yeah.
That like the wave got really big like mid 90s, and then like this is where you start to see like, you know, like Outkast and shit like that like really just start to like dominate a lot of like the pop space, I suppose. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at was it Tupac's album that came out in 95? Like All Eyes on Me.
That came out in 96. I think he dropped it like right before he got shot or something like that.
Okay, but that was like that album was everywhere.
Right,
so that was like legit mainstream. Like the music videos were like action movies and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So my point is with that is hip hop changed in 1996. It stopped being about, you know, like robbing people and survival and culture, and it became more glam.
Yeah,
more about the money that you make. So
yeah,
hip-hop
I would
changed.
definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point, man. Wow.
And mainstream hip hop hasn't recovered. Since then, that's been the trope with mainstream hip hop.
Yeah.
Is about confidence and, you know, what I got, what you don't have, you know.
Yeah.
In the mainstream.
It was always there, but yeah, it definitely became like I am rich, basically.
Right.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, I Am Rich is basically the opposite of everything that come before 1995 in hip hop.
Yeah,
it was always about the struggle.
The vibe is definitely like more street kind of oriented, where yeah, you can start to see the turn for sure. Dude, we haven't even talked about Fantastic Planet got released in 1996.
I mean, look, that's Fantastic Planet. I mean, that's my favorite record from him too. So
yeah, how many episodes is 1996? Are we going to do like a 7-parter on?
We could. We could.
Shit, man. Crazy.
I'm just saying, like, think of all the good stuff that came out 25 years ago that changed immediately.
Right. For sure. Dang.
How old were you in 1996?
So this would have been basically 1996 is when I peaked as a human being. So
Okay. Well, that's good.
I was 13. So
yeah.
I would have been.
Me too.
It would have been the back end of 7th grade, and like that summer. Yeah. Yep. That's when I peaked for sure as a human.
I turned 14 in October, so basically the summer of 1996 was me at my peak, I guess.
Wait,
I mean, think about it. You're riding around with your Zero T-shirt.
What year were you
know?
born? What year were you born?
82.
Okay, I was born in 82. When's your birthday?
October 12th.
Okay, so you're like 2 months older than me. Yeah, okay, so I was 14. So yeah, we're like the same age.
Yeah, we had the same interests probably.
Yeah.
I mean, look, think about it. It's 1996. We're 13 years old. We're riding around on our bikes, Zero T-shirts on.
Dude, I had so like, look, I'm gonna take a huge derailing here. So
Do it.
I have absolutely no game, like with the ladies, with anybody. I have no game. Okay.
Right. Okay.
In 96 is when I had the most game. And it has.
Well, it was 1996. Everyone had game.
My fucking game basically fell off a cliff, like pretty much after that year. So I was like living the dream that summer, like making out with girls, like just like yeah. I told you, man, I peaked in 96, and I've been a terrible person ever since.
Well, I mean, isn't that kind of the whole theme with the Smashing Pumpkins 1979?
Yeah.
That song sounds like nostalgia. I mean, like 1979 is just it's a random number. Like Billy Corgan was probably like 5 years old in 1979, but
right.
it's just a random number. But that song is nostalgia. Like that's why that song is so good, because everybody can relate to it.
Yep.
Everyone can relate to like summer when we all peaked.
Yep. I haven't been right since, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, like, look at the established groups, too. Van Halen broke up twice in 1996.
How the fuck are you going to break up twice in 1 year? This was because they brought in Roth, right? And then that didn't work, and then they brought in that other singer dude, and then that didn't work after they made the album?
That was later. Okay,
okay.
So, all right, so the movie Twister broke up Van Halen.
This was during Hagar, right?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah,
so this is a great story. But
Okay.
the second time they broke up was when they got David Lee Roth back and
Okay,
blah, blah,
okay.
blah. You know, that sucked. Okay,
Right.
so, all right, so Van Halen had just come off, like, the world tour, and they're one of the only groups that still made relevant rock music in the grunge era. Okay, so, I mean, Hagar sucks, but they were still popular and relevant.
Okay.
All right, so they was going to take their break, and the dude from the movie Twister, the director, approached them about recording a song. I think it was for Twister. Record a song for Twister, and that would like ride them out for the rest of the year while they take their break. And Twister's clearly about tornadoes.
Right.
The dude's like, look, if you write this song, don't mention tornadoes in it. I don't want a song about tornadoes. And Van Halen's like, yeah, okay, whatever, you know.
Dude, I've
so,
never even heard of this director. Like, Jean de Bont is a Dutch cinematographer. Like, what is he?
He directed Speed before.
Oh, fucking Speed's
Twister.
a great movie. He produced SLC Punk. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's a cool dude. Check his stuff out. But the point is, like, this dude was a big director at the time because of Speed or whatever.
Okay.
Or whatever. So he's like, do your thing, Van Halen. Just nothing about tornadoes. I don't want a song about tornadoes because that's like super lame. And like Eddie Van Halen's like, yeah, fine, no big deal. He like knocks the song out, like records the whole song, and Sammy Hagar's gonna write the lyrics for it.
Okay.
And he's like, he brings lyrics to the director and is like, okay, so I'm gonna call the song this, and like that's a tornado reference. I told you no tornadoes.
Yeah.
And so he like kicks him out. And, like, Eddie's, like, super pissed at this because, like, that's really embarrassing. Like, Sammy, you got one job. You sing, you make the lyrics.
Right.
All right, so he calls up a week later. Hey, can I have the script for the movie? just so I can get the feel for different scenes. And the director's like, all right, you know.
Yeah.
So he gives him some stuff. He shows up lyrics. Okay, so here's what I'm working for with these scenes. They're like, Sammy, these are referencing tornadoes again. So it gets into a huge fight with Eddie and Sammy, and then Sammy walks before the song's finished. So they record the song, and there's like 2 or 3 verses that weren't even finished into the song, so Eddie just replaces them with guitar solos. And yeah. And after that, like, things went really south for them, and they end up like, look, we're not dealing with this anymore. We've got a greatest hits album coming out. Let's get Dave back just to record a couple songs and see how it goes. And they, of course, broke up. But in saying that, the song from Twister and Van Halen is probably the best Sammy Hagar Van Halen song.
Dude, that is just an insane story. Like, don't write about fucking... and he just can't wrap his fucking head around it. Like,
yeah, I gotta write about tornadoes. No, and the best thing is, you can look this up. The song title that he had for this song that he's working on was called "The Suck Zone."
Yeah, I saw that.
And I guess one of the arguments is like, Eddie's like, look, we're not recording a song called "The Suck Zone." It's just not gonna happen.
Oh my god. I mean, it's a little ridiculous though for like De Bon or whatever this director to be like,
yeah,
don't write me a song about tornadoes even though I'm making a fucking movie about tornadoes.
Right, but I mean, how many songs have you heard from movies that directly reference what's going on in the movie?
I don't know. Probably
it's Van Halen. We don't listen to Van Halen for songs about tornadoes. We hear songs about drinking and partying and human anatomy, you know. So that story could only have happened in 1996.
Yeah, that's some like people just doing whatever the fuck they want.
But a great story.
Yeah, fuck yeah, for sure. Oh my god, yeah. That's kind of when you're like, Van Halen, things are getting out of hand.
Oh, we haven't talked about Beck either.
Oh, yeah.
Odelay came out in 1996.
Fuck. Really?
Yeah.
God damn it. Yeah, dude,
and
that's too much.
Oh man, like we can go on addition. See, I originally, for those listening still, I had originally planned on doing a year-long series about the weird stuff of 1996, you know, in articles. I had a bunch of interviews. I wanted to try to reach out to certain people, and a few people were kind of cool in my idea, but they didn't understand that it was going to be articles and not like a TV show. So that kind of turned them off. But I did reach out to a few people, and a couple of artists were super cool. Like, I reached out to the dude from Primitive Radio Gods. Do you remember that band?
Yeah.
They had that song, that telephone out. Wait, was it Standing Outside a Telephone Booth?
Yeah.
What money? Whatever it's called.
Yeah.
I reached out to that dude. He has like zero presence on social media.
Okay.
He's like strictly old school, but I kept searching and searching, and I ended up uncovering his email, and I sent him an email saying I wanted to interview him and talk about the hit song or whatever.
Yeah.
And he emailed me back like the same day, and he's like, hey, that's a really good idea, and I really appreciate you like hunting me down, but I would rather talk about music that I'm doing now rather than sticking in the past. But
right.
Unfortunately, I'm not making any new music right now. So if you want, I can send you a download to everything that I've got. But basically, what he was telling me is like, I'm not going to be interviewed, you know.
Yeah.
But I thought that was super cool, though.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I mean, man, this is a huge fucking subject for episode 2. We went big.
Yeah. I mean, you could talk all day about all the hit songs that probably shouldn't have been hits in 1996. I mean, the Butthole Surfers. I mean, they literally had the name of their band because they didn't want to be mainstream.
Right.
And they had that song Pepper, which is basically just a ripoff of Loser from Beck.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay. More one-hit wonders. Tracy Bonham. Do you remember her?
Oh, God.
She had that song Mother Mother.
Yo, when did the Lilith Fair happen? 98?
That was 97. Okay.
Okay.
And that kind of goes back into after radio stations knew what they wanted.
Okay.
So if you think about it, the groups that got popular in 1997, they turned them into superstars in 97 from 1996. Like Jewel had a couple hit songs in 96, like Who Will Save Your Soul and that other one, which is garbage. But then in 1997, suddenly she's like a headliner on her own tours and stuff. Like, how?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Sheryl Crow, she was another one that became a superstar for no reason.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. That is brutal. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, 97, like, is the year that everything really sucked.
It really was terrible. Like, yeah, we had to, like, it went from, like, you know, being annoyed with, like, half the songs, you know, in 96, whatever, like, and then 97 was just kind of hell. Like, I think that's when, like, Sublime got big, like, Homeboy died, and they dropped that fucking self-titled, and, like...
That was 96.
Yeah, oh, okay, yeah. Okay.
But any other time when they have gotten success, which that's kind of like a post-mortem thing, so...
Yeah, good point.
That kind of helps to sell records, you know?
Man, I listened to that album a while back just to be like, I had, because I'm not a Sublime guy, and I never have been. Right. But I was like, oh, I'm going to listen to this because I had, as an adult, so like 2 summers ago, I think I listened to it. Just to be like, oh yeah, this was something I had to listen to in the summertime of 97 or 96 or I don't fucking know. Mm-hmm. Good God, dude. There's literally a song about having sex with a 12-year-old. It's like
I just tweeted that like last week.
Like that was a hit. It was a hit. It was a hit. Like the video was on fucking constantly.
Yep.
Like, and it was this adult man talking about having sex with a 12-year-old.
It's the opening lyric.
Yeah.
It's the opening lyric. He says the character in the song's 12 years old.
Yeah. Like, what the fuck? Like, what?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, dude. Okay. Yeah. I was just like, I hadn't thought about them or that band or anything, right? Like, and I listened and I was like, oh yeah, this song. And then I was like, holy fuck. Like, what?
It was just a different time back then.
Oh,
Human sex trafficking was okay.
I guess. Holy shit, dude. Like, that was a hit though. Like, it was all the time.
I mean, all their hit songs are terrible.
Well, I mean, Sublime's not a good band. I don't fucking
like
Sublime. Like, they can fuck up.
They suck. That's one of the worst groups. They had no business being popular.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of garbage though. Like, well, I mean, I like the group Garbage. They had a big year in 1996.
I think that was like their last big year, wasn't it?
No, they had some hits. Probably like a 98, I think.
So This Is Garbage 2.0 was the album that dropped around that time, right?
That was the one that came out in 98, yeah.
Oh, okay. So they were still on the first one. Okay.
Yeah, so their first album come out like in the end of 95, I think. But like all their hit songs was in 96. Yeah.
All right, sweet. We haven't even hit on movies, and I don't even think we should, because then this episode's going to be like 3 hours long.
Yeah, we can touch on that on another time, maybe towards the end of the year before.
I mean, I just want to say that Striptease came out in 96, and the fact that Demi Moore got paid like an insane amount of money to show her boobs is the thing.
Okay, but I know, but the year before that, Showgirls came out. So isn't Striptease just like the big budget version of Showgirls?
Yeah, but they paid Demi Moore $12.5 million to show her boobs.
That's cool. But the other movie had the girl from Saved by the Bell in it.
Hey, man, I will not have any blasphemy about the movie Showgirls on this podcast.
I don't either. That movie is beautiful garbage.
Look, that movie meant a lot to me back in the day, okay? That's all I want to say.
That movie meant a lot to you probably in 1996.
Yeah. I have to basically base my existence around the fact that Showgirls molded me and helped me peak at 96. And that there has never been a better film since, so I have struggled as a human since.
Well, I mean, I know we won't go into the topic of movies because that would be like a 5-hour podcast, but think of it even in movies changed to where we had tentpole movies in 1996 from then on out.
Yeah.
Like Twister, Independence Day.
Yeah.
Like the movie that no one ever talks about with the volcano. I think it was actually called Volcano.
Oh, that's when they really started to dive into like, we're gonna fucking kill everybody on Earth and make all these movies that basically are like these like Mars Attacks. Like
yeah, which I love Mars Attacks.
Mars
though.
Attacks
That's like
is fucking dope.
That's a 1996 movie.
Yep.
But I'm just saying, like, all the movies was destroying monuments and destroying things, and like since then, every movie has been that. You can't turn on a friggin' Marvel movie right now, and there's always going to be a scene where they shoot a giant laser up into the sky.
Yep.
You know, like everything come out of 1996.
Yeah. It's very true. Very true.
It's the most pivotal year in pop culture.
Man, Showgirls was great. You know what's kind of nuts to think about is like the nerdy, like stuck up, like sassy girl from Saved by the Bell. Her next project that she does is fucking Showgirls, and then that's pretty much it.
Yeah, good for her though. But you want to know? Okay, you think that? Okay, we love garbage and trash, right? That's why we like Showgirls. The best thing about Showgirls though is the TV version of Showgirls.
I don't think I've ever experienced the TV version.
You owe it to yourself to see the TV version of Showgirls. I promise you, you will. I don't drink, but if I would drink, this would be the movie that you watch at a party, because it's hilarious. They dub really poorly, like all the words are different.
It has to be like 45 minutes long. Like, how are you keeping any sensible like part of that movie?
Yeah. Okay. So like the nudity, they blur it out with cartoon clothes.
Oh man,
you gotta look it up,
dude.
I promise you will laugh.
Fucking the Twin Peaks guy, Kyle MacLachlan's in this movie. Like, he must have just been hurting after like Twin Peaks and shit. Like, dude's like an actor, right? Like, he's like in movies, he's in like good shit, and like this motherfucker's in Showgirls. Like, that's crazy,
Man.
Right?
Yeah. That's 96.
Like,
was that come out 95?
A couple years earlier, he played Ray Manzarek in The Doors, and then he's on fucking Showgirls. Like, that's yeah.
Oh man,
that's great. He must have just had a tough year, you know. Work wasn't coming in, and
well, you know, in the 90s, everyone loved to be edgy. So someone really pitched that to him as this big edgy movie that's gonna, like, we're gonna release this movie that we know it's gonna be an NC-17. You know
what's fucking. So I'm looking at the wiki, and like, so it bombed in the theaters, right? So Showgirls only made like $37 million in the box office, right?
It made $37 in the box office.
Yes, $37 million. Actually, just $37.
Right.
So 3 10s and 1 5 and 2 1s.
6 people saw it.
But the thing that's fucking insane, and it's so like typical, is once it came out to like rental, the movie made an extra $100 million.
Exactly.
Because no one wants to go watch that show in a theater like next to their buddy, but like you can rent that motherfucker at home, and like, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's great though. But see, like, that was the thing with the 90s though. Anything was edgy or extreme radical, dude. Like, that's what everything was marketed to. Like, look at all the skate culture that got popular in the 1990s.
Yeah, for sure.
Video games and we haven't even talked about video games, man. How many, you know, that you was dying for an N64 in 1996.
Dude, I was glued when the 64 dropped. I mean, I was already like a SNES guy.
Yeah,
like big time. But I mean, and an NES guy before that. But yeah, the 64 dropped, like, and then I mean, they knew what they were doing. Like, then they dropped like Ocarina of Time like right after that, and it's like, no wonder I peaked in 96, because after that all I did was play fucking 64. That's all I did after.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you weren't listening to music because
music
music sucked. So you had to get into something else.
Music sucked. I had my home version of Showgirls, and I stayed. This is all making sense. This is why I peaked in '96, and these are all the reasons why.
Yeah, see? Well, I mean, yeah, it's... Yeah. And Surge. The drink Surge came out in 1996.
Oh my god, yeah. Jesus.
But, you think with that actually changed the way we looked at highly caffeinated drinks. We're still drinking energy drinks today. And all that comes back to Surge being marketed that way.
You're still drinking energy drinks. If I have caffeine, I turn into like an absolute anxious nightmare.
Are you serious?
Yeah, can't do it. Unless I'm drinking alcohol with it.
Yeah, well, see, I don't drink, so I have to have something that keeps me going because I do physical labor for a living.
Right.
And I'm old. I'm not who I was in 1996.
Would you give up everything you have now to go be in 1996 again?
Okay, so we like music and movies and Showgirls and stuff, but if we're going to tie this back to what I feel about nostalgia, you're going to have to go back and read my Space Jam article because...
Okay.
Because nostalgia sucks. I'll get into it really quick. I'll just abridge version. Everyone always wants to go back because we're that was a simpler time but the thing about it is it was a simpler time for you at the time.
Right.
The world was still a terrible place and it was probably worse in 1996 than it is now.
Well, yeah, but, I mean songs about having sex with a 12-year-old were perfectly fine, so.
Right. And done for humor,
Yeah.
And then you had movies like The Pest that came out in 1996.
Oh, was that with John Leguizamo?
Yes.
I don't think I've ever actually seen that movie.
It's punishment.
Yeah, I'm good.
Yeah. But no, I'm just saying that if you're going to get into the mentality is oh, I'd love to go back, that means that nothing good is now and that art peaked when you were a kid.
Yeah, I mean,
and that's very unfair.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. There's probably obviously, but there's probably two people that appreciate new music right here that that came out so garbly, but you know what I mean,
No, I know, right.
Yeah, nostalgia's great, I can sit and hoot and holler about, how good these bands were in their last albums and all that shit, but we're definitely not, and I don't mean to speak for you, but I'm not some of those people that just sit and be oh, the 90s rock and that's it, constantly finding new music, constantly searching out new music, that type of shit, music has not died, rock hasn't died, whatever people fucking say, you just have to look now. You know what I mean?
Speak for me, Daddy.
Yeah, I mean...
Well,
yeah.
I mean, no, and that's the truth. Well, I mean, going back to 1996, that's when the internet first was becoming a thing.
Right.
Okay, so music sucked in 1997 horribly, and probably in 98 too, but then we had the internet. So even though the Telecommunications Act killed what we thought about 90s culture, it actually opened another door to where it gave us a new underground.
Yep.
Because, I wasn't, when I was 13 or 14, I wasn't going to go to clubs and get cassette tapes of this new band coming out, but I would definitely download an MP3.
Right.
Right. So the internet became the new underground. So, and it probably wouldn't have been the new underground if it wasn't for this same act that killed, the 90s. Right. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's I don't know, it's like a curse. The internet definitely has fucked over musicians more than it has helped. Your shit's more accessible, and everybody can listen to you, but everybody can listen to you for free now. You know what I mean? That's
true, but bands have always made more money playing live than from record sales anyway.
Yeah, I know, but this you have to admit that the only bands that have really made money off record sales are bands that existed before the internet.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's also a big tangent. Sorry, I'm stopping there. Just
that's
saying.
Yeah, so. That's a whole other topic.
Yeah, okay. Cool. All right. Could I go down the list of people that were considered to be the main character in Showgirls before we sign off?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, What is her name? Her name's like Elizabeth Berkley or something, right?
No, it's the Saved by the Bells girl. That's
Yeah, okay.
That's what we refer to as.
Okay, so the list started with Pamela Anderson, Drew Barrymore, which if that would have happened, I would have died.
Right.
Angelina Jolie. I don't know who Vanessa Marcil is. Jenny McCarthy, Denise Richards, and Charlize Theron. So, like, I would argue that Drew Barrymore, Angelina Jolie, and Charlize Theron, if they would have done this movie, that would have been it.
Okay, but look, being that Charlize Theron didn't do this movie, she did 2 Days in the Valley, which is one of my all-time favorite movies.
Well,
and
that's what I'm saying. Like,
and it came out in 1996.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, I'm just saying, like, this could have been, like, career killers for, like,
Yeah,
three
right.
actresses that ended up being, like, really fucking big. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Yeah.
Man. I should have invited Elizabeth Berkley to this podcast.
Oh, that would have been great.
I'm going to do that.
Cool.
I want to reach out to Elizabeth Berkley and be, look, we want to talk to you about projects, not Saved by the Bell, just Showgirls. But not the movie Showgirls, what the movie did for your career, Showgirls.
Yeah.
I wonder if she would respond.
I don't know. I'm looking her up now to, like, see what she's doing.
I know they had that Saved by the Bell revival on one of those streaming channels, but I don't think anyone watched that.
Yeah, I mean, she actually has stayed very busy.
Oh.
Like, at least a handful of movies. Like, tons of movies. Like, she was in something last year. And then, yeah, same with TV. Like, she like, didn't, like, disappear.
Well, good for her.
Yeah.
Well, maybe she'll big time me and wouldn't even respond.
Look, man, I am not hating on anybody. I'm here to say one more time that the movie Showgirls was a blessing.
Okay, but look, it was a blessing in 1996, though, not 1995. Because it probably didn't come out on video till 96.
Right, yeah, no, it was a blessing in 96, and...
Oh, hold up, though, look, we're going back to the old podcast. You know what else had a really big year in 1996?
Don't do it.
I have to.
Go ahead.
The Foo Fighters.
I saw them on their, like, first kind of tourish that year.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Were they good?
Fuck, they were amazing, dude. Like,
Of course they were.
I mean, that was...
That's when they were good.
Yeah, like, yeah.
They're still good, like,
No, they're
live,
not.
but I
No,
mean...
no,
but
no.
no, their
I've
music
seen
is
them live,
garbage.
and they are fucking terrible.
No, I'm just saying, like, they're still relevant in terms of selling stuff out. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. No, but
That's
this is
another
when they
topic,
still
yeah.
had, like, half
The
of
Drive.
They had Sunny Day Real Estate's rhythm section.
yeah.
Pat Smear was their guitar player when he actually wasn't just, like, this hack. Well, I mean,
They
he's
just
always,
stood around, yeah.
I mean, he's always kind of been a hack, right? I don't know.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a good show. Is when he was, like, just obnoxious just because he was obnoxious, not because he was obnoxious and, like, a caricature
Right.
or whatever of himself. So
Oasis was also really big in 96.
I'm not talking about Oasis.
These are things that we talked about in the old podcast. So we don't need to talk about those anymore.
Look, there's never been a confirmation that there's two Gallagher brothers. Look,
There's two Gallagher brothers. That's been confirmed. It's just we can't tell them apart. I don't know and don't care which one's which.
No, there's only one.
No, they fight. So they fight. It's not a Lord of the Rings thing. They really do fight. But I just don't care which one's which. And no one should.
Oh man.
And Wonderwall sucked.
I fucking hate Oasis. Always have, always will. All right, we better end this, or I'm going to start talking about Showgirls 2: Pennies from Heaven, which I haven't seen.
I haven't seen. See, that can be another episode, but we'll dive into that in another time.
All right, cool.
So we're gonna close it out with thank you for listening. If you found this on one of the streaming sites, please give us a good review. Share it with your friends. If you're a company or a brand who would like to advertise, please endorse us so we can have ad money.
It depends. Only if It is the studio that brought us Showgirls. So
I would definitely pimp a 4K restoration Blu-ray of Showgirls on this podcast.
So we are only accepting sponsors from MGM, the movie studio. Sorry.
Yes.
So MGM, if you're out there, hit us up.
Yes. And Saved by the Bell Girl, I love you.
Yep, perfect. Yeah, I think that's a good closeout. Perfect.
Yeah. Until next time, this is Coop and Jon signing out.
Peace.